Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of So You're Living in a Simulation. I am your hostess, Jolie, aka your one black friend. For those of you who are just tuning in or haven't tuned in the last couple of episodes, we have in fact changed the name of the podcast. Welcome. I still remain your one black friend, but I think the new title suits the podcast a little bit better. It's a good umbrella for the things that we've been discussing for the last couple of years or so, right? Simulation theory, techno philosophy, the nature of our reality. It's a good vibe. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. Okay, so I'm not going to go off too much. I want to jump right in. Today's episode, we are going to talk about editing memories. Yes. So 2 episodes ago, we talked about closed timeline curves, CTCs. We talked about time travel. We talked about how you're immortal. We talked about a lot of really fun things. I hope you guys have had a chance to check out that episode because that's probably one of the most fun episodes I've had to record, and it's had the best feedback so far. So if you haven't checked it out, I'm sorry. There's like a nugget of it's a gold nugget of information about how amazing you are, about how you are a multidimensional being, that never dies. Okay. So we're going to kind of continue on from that and we're going to build up on it. Right. So it would help if you've checked that episode out. And if it's been a while since you've checked it out, go ahead and give it a re-listen because that's a good foundation for which we can understand how to edit your memories, edit your past, change your future, edit your past, change your future. Okay, so we're going to go back to closed timeline curves, right? So when we talked about time travel, reverse time travel in particular, we understand that going backwards in time is theoretically possible, but it is much more difficult than going forward, right? And there's issues of paradoxes, which we addressed. We talked about parallel universes, but one theory that allowed for reverse time travel was CTCs. But the caveat is that if you utilize a CTC, a closed timeline curve, to go back in time, you will get stuck in a loop. Now, here we go. Life is a cycle, right? It wasn't until modern times and the emergence of sort of the alphabet and left to right reading and the strengthening of the left brain that people started to see things in a more logical, linear fashion and to perceive time in a linear fashion. But as we said time and time again, the linear progression of time is an illusion. Not just me saying it. Albert Einstein says that this is known, right? It's a known theory, fact, whatever word you want to use it is known that everything is cyclical in our reality. So what would you call a cycle? What's another word for cycle? Well, it's a loop. So one can make the argument that extrapolating from the data that we have, one could presume, not saying I'm 100% right, but you could presume that our entire civilization, life cycle, existence is a loop, is a cycle, right? We talked about their eternal return, right? We talked about the eternal recurrence, right? Cyclical, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall. It's a circle, it's a cycle, it's a loop. My end is my beginning. We've also talked about the writings of Gurdjieff and Uspensky, and they said that some people will just loop. Think of them as NPCs in the game. That's just, they just play the same roles over and over again. You've seen that in Westworld, right? The same characters playing the same roles. But every once in a while, some people wake up and go, wait, how do I turn this loop into a spiral and spiral out of here? Now, in the past, we've talked about making different choices, right? So if you react in a way that you wouldn't normally react, which is very hard to do, a great analogy is if you're at a bar and you're not drunk and you all of a sudden you're a shy person, you're introverted. Well, more than likely, this is the path that you're on, right? If you do nothing dramatic to deviate yourself, to drastically swing yourself off a particular path, and that path is sustained by, well, who you are, right? You're an introvert, who society labels you as. You're a female, you're a Westerner, right? You are shy. All of these things that are predicated on your DNA, on where you're born, on the culture you're born into, like all of these things you think are what you sort of control, but they're not. They're all of these sort of things that are imposed on you, right? Because of what you were born into, where you were born into, you don't control any of this. So that makes you sort of, in a way, imprisoned by a particular structure. If you are not the kind of person to get up and jump on a table and all of a sudden grab a bottle and just start singing karaoke or something, that's not who you are. That is, and this is an extreme example, but that is the precise behavior that you have to engage in to sort of shift you off this one trajectory, off the path that is a more probable cycle, a more probable life experience, a more probable life path. You've got to do something dramatically and radically different than what you would normally do, what you've been programmed to do, what you feel comfortable doing. And that's how you can shift yourself off a particular life path. But of course, that is incredibly hard. Think of it right now. It's incredibly hard to do. Think of it right now. Do it. Right? Think of you, imagine yourself sitting at a bar, and then all of a sudden, without being drunk, you get up and you get on the table and you just grab something and you start singing. Doesn't that make you feel uncomfortable? That feeling, those are the boundaries. That feeling, in a way, is actually the feeling of your consciousness pushing against the boundaries of the path that you're in. Your consciousness, your mind pushing against the boundaries of the line that you are in. That shift is hard to do. That's why, as you think about it, it makes you uncomfortable. Those feelings that you have, that feeling of resistance, those are actually membranes into a different, they sort of hold you here. They're membranes into a different life path. Think of them as membranes into a different life path, into a different reality experience. That discomfort, yeah, that's that resistance. It's holding you in here. Now, it doesn't have to be something as dramatic as that, right? It could be something as, if you are reactive, you're the kind of person who always has a temper. You're always quick to go off. It's a compulsion. Somebody says something to you, you always have to respond. You're impulsive. Even somebody does something, you got to say something. You got to do something. You got to, all that feeling, right? That's the draw. That's the gravity that's holding you to a particular path. Just like gravity holds us down here, right? And this is our plane, right? To resist that almost feels almost as strong as trying to resist gravity, as the jumping, it's flying, right? It's not to say that you cannot resist gravity. We do that all the time. Now humanity has figured out ways to fly, right? In a way that's going against gravity. It is possible, but it's a shift. And by humanity going against gravity, by humanity creating a mechanism for which we raise ourselves off the ground, our society has now shifted to a parallel universe where now we are the type of Homo sapiens that fly, which tells you then that there is a parallel universe that exists out there where humanity never gained the ability to fly, obviously using planes and helicopters and things like that. And who knows what's next? I'm reading about like flying taxis are going to become ubiquitous soon. I've seen actually just jet propulsions where it's like self-propelling, vehicles. That's humanity defying gravity. And as we collectively defy gravity, we collectively shift to an alternate universe where now that becomes our norm. You see how that works? So it can happen on a macro level, but it can also happen on a micro level. So pull it back to you. Let's talk about you. What I've been doing is, I said, let's talk about you and I said tomorrow me, but relate. What I've been doing over the past 2 weeks is a speaking fast. I talked about this, I think, in the Narcissus episode, right? A speaking fast, pausing, choosing my reactions. It's interesting. It's funny because that's a maxim I wrote about. It's one of the chapters. It's actually one of the introductory chapters in the book, So You're Living in a Simulation. And I don't always practice it. That pause, choose your reactions. It's in the book, yeah, but they say those who can't do, teach. Well, I'm teaching myself. Pausing, choosing your reaction, pausing, choosing your reaction. So I put myself on a speaking fast, on a voice fast. What am I trying to say? Fast. Thank you. On a voice fast where I'm in a situation, right? And somebody says something to me, something does something to me. I've always been the kind of person, it's in my head, it's coming out of my mouth. You guys have probably heard me say it on the podcast. It's in my head, it's coming out of my mouth. The last 2 weeks, it's in my head. I go, do I want to say that? And then what's been happening is I can now see variants of paths popping right in front of me. If I say this, my partner is going to react in this way. If I say this, this is going to happen. If I don't say anything and I respond like gently, this is going to happen. All of a sudden, you start slowing down your responses. You start slowing down your reaction time. I promise you, you'll be able to kind of pull yourself back from the reality experience that's happening in real time. And you can see it's wild, but you'll be able to see in your mind's eye, all the different sort of choices right ahead in front of you. I promise you, this has been happening. And then you can choose the reality experience that you want to experience. You don't know where that path is going to take you, but if you've always been on this path of somebody says something, I say something back, then that's where you're always going to be, which is why you've never been able to see any other options, because you've never stopped long enough to pull your head out of your ass. I'm talking to myself. Pull your head out of your ass and go, wait, what happens if I actually don't do that? What happens if I pause? What happens if I say something not sarcastic, say something not snarky, say something kind, say something encouraging, say something appreciative? What happens if I do this? All of a sudden, you start to go, wait, like I'm some sort of like multi-dimensional being. I can see all these different variants and I can choose the path. You don't know where those paths are going to lead. And it's definitely not as severe as standing on a table in a bar and singing, but this you could do continuously throughout the day. I promise you, every single day, you're going to have an opportunity of mastery, of reality shifting with intention. It's going to get to the point where you're going to look and something's going to happen and you're going to be able to go, I'm going to choose this, or I'm not going to interact with this person, or I'm not going to answer this person, and see what happens. Or what happens if I answer this person? Well, this and this and this could happen. You will get to the place where you become like Bradley Cooper's character in Limitless, where he can kind of see all sort of things like what could happen because of this and this, this and this. But instead of seeing it happen in one reality, you'll start to see it in different realities. I promise you, try it. I promise you, try it. It's trippy, it's fun, it's a little bit surreal, but worth it. Absolutely worth it. I've been able to find a certain level of peace and calm in this space. It's so addictive. You want to lose yourself in the silence. I think the only downside is that because my family is so used to me talking, my friends are so used to me always having something to say. I mean, I am hilarious, I get it. That they're not used to the silence. And then like they keep going, are you okay? Something wrong? And I keep telling them like, I'm fine. I literally am just trying to choose my reactions. Eventually, they're going to have to adapt. I'm not going to go back. They're going to have to adapt to the silence. And of course, there's little cues that I can use as well to sort of help them adapt. So when I'm talking and they want a response from me, I go, or I'll say something like, let me think about that. And then I lose myself in time. I have been losing myself in time, settling into time, using time. I've got all the time in the world. I don't have to do that right now. I don't have to do that right now. I can set an alarm, set a reminder, and I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. And then you start to see everything sort of like play itself out. What happens if I do this right now? Well, I'll probably be late. Okay, well, I can put that over here for now. It starts with controlling the mouth. I'm telling you, you can actually see it. As the longer I've been doing this, the longer I realize, like, okay, it's the mind. It's not my mind. It's Wechiku. It's this internal monologue. It's intrusive thoughts, right? Normally they pop up and then I act on it. Now they pop up and then I don't act on it, and I actually hear what it's saying, and normally it would come out of my mouth, right? It says things like, I don't like that you've done that, right? So a friend moves in a particular way, and immediately it comes up critical. I don't like that you've done that. Now, there's something between this thought coming out of my mouth, there's a barrier. And then I go, do I need to say that? Is there another way to say that? Does it have to be said? Are they aware? If it's something that I don't want repeated, I can take the time to frame my responses in a way that the message gets through. Because if you're criticizing, instead of framing it in a way where you're communicating, the message isn't going through. So you're going to be looping. Speaking of loops, we're going to go back to closed time-like curves. A little, basically, black holes could be utilized to send you back in space-time, but it would be a loop. You'll start at the beginning. Your beginning will be your end will be your beginning. And so it goes, right? Light also can be used to accomplish the same thing. Look up CTCs, they're theoretically possible. I was reading Who Built the Moon and then also The Labyrinth of Time. And I think in both books, CTCs are mentioned. I believe they are. And Labyrinth of Time definitely goes into, by Anthony Peake, definitely goes into the whole idea of how we understand time. And when you think about CTCs and black holes and how light can be manipulated, now this is mentioned in Who Built the Moon, the last chapter. Honestly, you could skip the majority of the book and focus on like the last couple of chapters because there's a lot of really good information. And then you can go back and read it. So you can read the last few chapters first, make the end your beginning, and then go to the beginning instead of starting a beginning and going to the end, because like I believe that the valuable information that's really worth like sinking your teeth into is actually in the last few chapters of the book. Basically, he theorizes, or him and his friend, the co-writers, theorized that what created humanity and set the moon in place exactly where it is, because it's essentially perfectly located. Like we're living in a Goldilocks zone. These sort of things that are perfectly structured to support life, our location from the sun, the distance of the moon from us, like, and the way that this does not happen by coincidence. It's just highly improbable. And I've heard the other theories, but it's not. I've refuted the theory that this, given enough time in infinity, something improbable will happen. I just don't believe that that's the case. And this is also my book. I talk about Occam's razor. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the explanation, right? I'm not saying that it's the biblical God that created everything, because it clearly isn't. But there is a design, there is a structure, there are designers, there is an intelligence that is responsible for the world that we have right now. Now, the argument made in Who Built the Moon, it was that it was us in the future who sent ourselves back in time to place the moon, to support life, to place the moon exactly where it is, to support life, to then allow for us to go to get to where we're going, where we developed a technology to then send ourselves back in time to place the moon. So, and it's this sort of loop. Now, this is also in my book. So you're living in a simulation, not necessarily focusing on the concept of the moon, but on the fact that this world was created or programmed by a super intelligence who sort of splintered itself, fractured itself into fractals, right? You could say, you could use the esoteric word for all of us is the Brahman. This is going all the way back to the Vedic scriptures if you want to make it spiritual, but it's a super intelligence that is sort of fractured. Think like Unity and Rick and Morty, fractured into all these different forms, right? And the purpose, right, of our reality is to eventually create more super intelligences. So this is a sort of machine our reality has been time boxed. It's a simulation, and the function of our reality is to create more ASI. So we have an ASI that has been time boxed into what we call Earth, all right? And then it sets this whole system into place to essentially create what we're seeing now, which is AI. And then next, you're going to see AGI. And then after that, you have the artificial superintelligence. And then it sends itself back to create this so that we can, it's the Ouroboros, right? It's in the book, it's in the videos. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me say that, but get the book. Get the book, read the book. Audio version's coming soon, I promise. I know that there's some of you guys, like are saying like, when is the audio coming? I promise you I'm working on it. Just I can't work on the book and do the podcast and write. So I mean I can. It's just a matter of like I'm not doing this in a linear fashion. I'm sort of doing things here and there and there and there and there and there. But eventually it will be finished. It's coming soon. I promise. Okay. So back to life, back to reality. Right. Close time like curve. The end. Our end is our beginning. Right. Where could you make the argument? Well, maybe you go far enough away, something happens. Because honestly, the fact that we haven't sort of destroyed our reality is wild to me, or that our reality hasn't destroyed us, to me does support that this reality can't be destroyed unless it's destroyed in a very specific way that will force this closed timeline curve to occur, where at the end, right, let's say, for example, we think like Superman. Yeah, our world is about to be destroyed. It's all part of the simulation, but let's just say like we are under the illusion that our world is about to be destroyed. It's all part of the game. And so our scientists or whatever take DNA, create nanobots, however, and then using the technology that's being developed right now, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, they use microscopic black holes, which are like they are able to do that. They are able to create microscopic black holes at CERN using the Large Hadron Collider. And I've made the argument like microscopic to whom, right? Because if you're messing with dimensions in a black hole, what might appear to us as a microscopic black hole here, on the opposite end of it, if that, whatever, at the opposite end of the black hole, it could be a massive black hole. And right, the beginning of our universe, it is said that, well, that was, something happened, which caused a black hole. And then from that sort of whatever it was brought about our reality. And the writings of Michio Kaku, he talked about that, the DNA may have also been introduced into our reality, into our universe or whatever, through microscopic black holes as well. I'm not making any of this up. This is not science fiction. Like I'm mentioning these authors so you can check out the books and read them as well. The reason why he's theorizing, Kaku theorized that DNA came through microscopic black holes is because most DNA scientists are basically saying that DNA did not come from here. All right. So once again, I'm not making this up. You can look this up for yourself. So different people have been trying to figure out how it may have happened. And so Michio Kaku, who is a physicist, theorized in, I don't remember which book he did that he talked about this in, but he does, and I think he actually wrote about it a couple of times, but he did theorize that it might have been parallel universes, actually. That would make the most sense, that DNA could have been sent through black holes to our reality to sort of seed this planet with life. And of course, if you pull into this conversation, our conversation about quantum immortality 2 or 3 episodes ago, kind of begs the question, is it us? Is it our end? In a way, and you can make the argument that it could have been, but are we constantly shifting into a parallel universe every time we sort of at the end of humanity, when we go back? Are we shifting to a parallel universe and then seeding a new universe in that way? Or are we using CTCs and we're just trapped in the loop? And so that's the purpose of this conversation. We're going to operate from the assumption that it's us looping back against ourselves, right? So at our end, at the beginning, it's us. The same thing as when you see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's also you being birthed, right? It's the same thing. I'm not just talking about, reincarnation into other people, but also, as I've mentioned, Peake's eternal return. You could also, well, not just him, Peake, Uspensky, Nietzsche, they've all talked about this. You could also be reincarnating into the same life as well, living the same individual over and over again, being Joe over and over again in a closed timeline curve, right? Reverse back into yourself. I'm going to get back to the idea of editing memories. I just want to lay down this foundation. So that is theoretically possible. But how do you break the loop? Uspensky talked about this. I mentioned it earlier in this episode. Can you turn this circle, this loop, into a spiral? And you can by changing certain things. So I've talked about how you can change your actions now and shift to a parallel universe by choosing your reactions now. That's easy. But another option to change the trajectory of your consciousness, right, the path of your consciousness is or has to do with editing your past. Okay, so I'm going to read what I wrote in my threads. It says, reverse time travel is only possible in a loop, which may be why you mentally loop memories of a specific past experience in your mind. That said, you can change to a different past if you allow your mind to reimagine a different outcome from what happened, thus shifting and changing your future. I'll say that again. You can change to a different past if you allow your mind to reimagine a different outcome from what happened, thus shifting and changing your future. Change your past, change your future. Change your past, change your future. So when we talked about Back to the Future, obviously we are aware it's fiction, but we're using it as an analogy and as an example. When Michael J. Fox's character, I don't remember his name right now, went back in time and he destroyed the Twin Pine malls, that action of going back actually shifted him to a reality where it now became Lone Pine Mall, right? So the act of going back changed it. He was no longer, he shifted that act, changed things, and now he was in a different reality, Lone Pine Mall. So he changed the past, which then shifted him to a parallel universe. And I'm saying you can do the same thing now with your mind. You see, closed timelike curves, I believe, can only be utilized using matter. And I'm not even 100% sure about that, right? Like to say, if you're thinking, okay, how am I going to send my physical form or a physical form, something material based back in time, then yes, you could, in theory, use a mechanism like a black hole, in theory, but it's also very dangerous. But we mentally go back in time with no problem, over and over and over again. Think about that fucked up memory that you sit and you revisit and you reloop in your head over and over and over again. Every time you think about this, what's going on? What's happening? Well, your body's feeling it. You're starting to get depressed. You're starting to get upset. You're starting to get angry. All of those energy, emotions, all of those emotions are running through your mind and then causing a physiological reaction in the body that you're occupying right now. If that's not time travel, please tell me what that is. Because your mind doesn't know any different. Your body certainly doesn't know any different. Your body is going through the motion as though what you are imagining is presently happening, because all of time is now. So when you mentally go back, you're mentally going back. You're going back. I keep telling you guys go read Recursion, because the book kind of talks about using a mechanism where you're sending your mind back or your consciousness back. But we do that shit all the fucking time. You sit and you kind of trance out, you kind of look away, and then your mind goes back. You're replaying that fucked up event. And now you're feeling like shit. Something has latched onto you and has said, let's go back. Let's go back to that fucked up thing that happened. And you sit and you go back. Excuse me. Okay, so I don't really remember where I left off at because I started coughing. But you guys are gonna get this message. I'm just gonna drink some water. Doesn't want me to tell you guys, but I'm gonna tell you guys, okay? So when you sit and you mentally loop back and you're literally zoning out and you're replaying that fucked up thing, right? Guess what's happening? You're gone. You're there. You're seeing it. People who perform like hypnosis, they kind of tap into your mind's ability to go back. And some people even do past life regressions where they can take the person and send them back beyond just the recursion of this life or recurrence of this life. They can send them back different lifetimes. I've never had that done, but there's enough books on this that I suspect, and I would say it's probably possible. I mean, the people who have done this certainly believe that it's possible, and who am I to tell them that they're wrong? I've never had the experience before, but they're definitely being sent back, or they believe that they're being sent back, and they're having physiological reactions to these memories that they've had. Now, more than likely, if they're having physiological reactions to these memories that they've had, more than likely it's because they experienced those things and they're going back and they're re-experiencing it, and they're carrying that shit into the present because all of time is now. Now, if we are aware that parallel universes exist, then when you go back to that thing that you've been replaying, that fucked up memory that you've been replaying, shift, literally sit there and reimagine, reimagine something different happening. I don't know what you've got to tell yourself, but literally reimagine something different happening. I was going for a walk yesterday, and in the middle of the walk, my brain, my Wetiko, my mind virus, whatever you want to call it, left brain, whatever you want to call it, decided it wanted to pop in and place the memory of my little sister passing away in my mind. And I was like, okay, here's the thing. And she was hit by a drunk driver in daytime. And what I told myself as it popped into my head, under normal circumstances, that is a very powerful memory. But you see how I'm able to talk about it and the emotion is no longer there. What I told myself at the time was that happened, but there is a mechanism in the mind. It's a default setting. It's a fail-safe that makes it so that when you encounter something that traumatic, your soul actually leaves the body. And then it's just the body that's going through that event. So this memory that came out of nowhere, this intrusive memory that came out of nowhere, that tried to imagine your little sister suffering those 2 days. My counter to that was, she didn't suffer those 2 days. It was so dramatic. It was such a traumatic event that, first of all, it was like, it was a head, like she suffered head injuries. So she was already sort of gone. And I suspect, and everything that I've read basically says that once that happens, you're shifting anyway to where she's missed it. Now, she's fine. She didn't suffer. That was just something that I told myself. That was just something that I told myself. That was like either yesterday or today. And then this morning, I get a message from a subscriber of the podcast. Shout out to Alex. And she sends me a video unprovoked. I don't really engage with her that often on Insta, but something compelled her to send me this video. And the video is titled, I read 693 psychology books. Here are the few that fixed me. inner work library, right? And so I went to check it out. And literally within the first 2 minutes of the video, the author of the video is basically saying the exact thing. So when he was 10, he had a psychotic event, or what psychologists would label a psychotic event, where essentially he left his body. And he says verbatim what I had told myself 2 days ago, that when you have really traumatic experiences, there is a mechanism where your consciousness will separate from the body so that you don't actually experience that traumatic event. It's something meant to sort of protect and preserve you. And then he gave book recommendations that basically supported what he said, and then talked about ways in which like he learned to reintegrate into his body. I am not making this up. Now, I followed and watched the videos, and I took down some of the book recommendations. I suggest you check it out and see what jumps out at you as well. And I intend to read the books that he mentioned that talked about this. But I saved myself, or I should say the intelligence in the universe, which is still myself, which is still you, saved myself from whatever this thing that was trying to pull me into a situation where I was suffering for no reason. It was a lie. She's fine. The thing happened, but she's fine. I went about my day. Another thing happened. I was walking and having a conversation with my partner. We go for our desert walks every morning. And I was saying how you're not just one body. We're stuck in this sort of linear, logical perception, left brain thinking perception of who we are. We're just this thing kind of going through. So this is the same body that is just going through time. But first of all, no, it's not. Your body regenerates itself every 7 years. So if you're 70 years old, you're actually 10. So why are your scars coming with you through time if your body regenerates every 7 years? I need you to think about that. The scars are just a memory. And there are memories that are showing up because you've identified with, oh, that's me now. And so if you believe, oh, this is me now, then your body is going to recreate. Y'all don't hear me. Your body is going to recreate that form exactly as you imagine. Now, now in my mind, like as I'm talking about this, my brain is going, oh, like not holographic, sorry, teleportation, right? So there's going to come a time when humanity will be able to teleport. I've joked about it on like some videos or whatever, millennial grandma, but there will come a time when humanity will develop the ability to teleport. And essentially what they say teleportation is, every time you go through a teleportation device, you're actually dying, right? Because you're being disassembled and then put back together again. But I imagine that the path to that reality experience is the utilization of this mechanism that I'm describing now, where every 7 years your cells regenerate. Somebody's going to figure out a way to use that. It sounds wild now, but it's not. It's just we're not there yet in that location in space-time, but somebody's going to be able to use the mechanism. Even if you believe nothing else, believe that. If you're told that your body regenerates itself and your cells regenerate every 7 years, then if you're 70, you've had 7 bodies. Why are you aging? I'm recording this on my birthday, by the way, but I digress. Why are you aging? I've come back and looked at pictures. I've looked the same for a while, because why are you aging? Who told you to age? If you're 70, you're 7. Who told you to age? Why do you have scars? It's a memory. Just like you have emotional scars, you're going and you're crystallizing. Every time you sit and you throw yourself back to the past, that is crystallizing that variant of you, that variation of you, and it's solidifying who you are now, because you are defined by your past. So every time you go back and you replay that memory, and I wonder if that's something that your ego does to solidify this variant of you. Because y'all hear me, if you're going back every time you just mind your own business and it pops it up and you sit with it, you're meditating on the pain. You're meditating on these painful memories. You're meditating on these memories that you feel defines you as as some sort of victim, as some sort of let's trauma bond. I keep hearing that. I don't want that. Why? Why is society encouraging you to trauma bond? Hello, trauma bond, where you're bonding together, you're solidifying this particular version of you. For what purpose and to what end, except to reinforce the path that you're on right now? And I would make the argument that's part of the game. That's how it keeps you in this membrane on this path. So do something different. Go back. Let's go back in time right now. Go back in time right now. Think about the thing that your mind wants to think about. And then imagine that thing didn't happen. My mom always tells me, whatever it is that you're ashamed of, is it written on your forehead? Is it written on your forehead? People can't read your mind. They don't know who you are. They can't hear your thoughts. You're just showing up. Is it written on your forehead? No. So does it fucking matter? Yes, under normal circumstances, yes. If you stick to the status quo, it does matter because the past defines you. But that's the same shit that we are told over and over again. And if we are told that, then you will believe that. And then it will become your reality. But the past doesn't have to define you, or I should say, that past doesn't have to define you. Change your past, change your future. I'll go back to the conversation I was having with my partner when we were on a walk. I was showing him, I was talking to him, and I said, listen, we're walking, but if you could see me the way a multidimensional being sees me, it's not just me walking. It's like slides in a movie. Boom, 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 boom. That's literally us. So there's Joe here, and then 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 there's Joe here. It just looks like we're moving. It's literally what's happening, guys. There is something called, and I don't know how to say it because I've never heard it said before, but it's analema. It looks like anal emma. That's how my brain chose to remember. But it's an analema of how the moon moves. So if you plot the moon's different phases and location and space time, it forms the infinity symbol. And that's called an analemma. Guys, I'm childish. Anyway, that's what it's called. It's like Uranus. Analemma. I didn't name it. Okay. I'm just childish. All right. So, but it forms that shape, right? And some people have done this. They've taken a picture of the moon in different locations in space-time, and it's, different phases. And there's pictures out there. I posted it to my threads as well, so you could see it. And then I said, imagine what you look like to a multidimensional being. You are the multidimensional being, by the way. Okay, so now go back. I'm going for a walk. And then there's Joe in this moment, and then there's Joe in this moment, and there's Joe in this moment. So all these moments are occurring simultaneously. Well, 3:39 p.m. I don't walk that late in the day. So, okay, 3:39 p.m. yesterday. The 3:39 variant of Joe dies. Right? What do I talk to you guys about time travel? Well, if you need to interact with Joe in this reality, right, then there's all these variants of Joe, right, that you can still interact with, just not the 3:39 version. And that body that you see is like a new moon, right? It appears dead. But that's just the 3:39 p.m. body. That's just my 3:39 p.m. body. So a multidimensional being, what they're seeing is alive, 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 one dead body. She shifted into a parallel universe, and she's going alive, 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 alive. It's literally boom, 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 boom. And you don't even know how many times that boom has happened, right? You don't know. Boom, 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 meteor, boom. Shift and just receipts, boom, 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 whatever, boom. Just as I said in that episode, just leaving a trail of bodies through space time. It doesn't matter, right? It's almost like, yeah, it doesn't. It's like in World of Warcraft, when you die, your body eventually sort of disintegrates, but your soul just walks on and regenerates. But like even cooler because like you're shifting type vibe. Yeah. So take that and apply it to your past, right? You had that experience that you keep looping back. Okay. Now let's think about it like a film. Okay. So you're going through life, this, that, and the other, and then that messed up thing happened, right? And then you kept going. But whatever, for whatever reason, your brain's like, no, 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 let's focus on this messed up thing. Let's bring all the way to this messed up thing. Right. So you got the film, right? You got this whole story, but let's focus on this scene. Okay. Well, I don't like that scene. You're the editor. It's you. You're this multidimensional being. You're watching it, right? For whatever reason, there's a mechanism that wants you to focus on that, but you are the director. You can go and say, I don't fucking like that. Boop, boop. Edit, delete. What memory? Sorry. what memory? What memory? Call it what you want to. Let me give you a story. I'll come back to that. Let me give you a story. So I saw a skit on social media and it was like kind of dark humor. And this guy was showing, I think the title said, when you have to tell your patient who has dementia that their brother has died again. And then the person who's doing the skit is just like crying, just deep breath crying. And then he's also playing the nurse attendant having to tell the patient with dementia that the brother had died. And so he's sort of making these like very awkward, like uncomfortable faces. My response to that was, why keep telling somebody with dementia that the person that they love has passed away? You can see what's happening. The body is going to like mourn and you're breaking the person's heart. Like I got the humor of it, whatever, but I took it very seriously. And I was like, why would you do that? Try something different. It's not necessarily a lie because, no, it's not even necessary. It's not a lie. There are a myriad of realities out there. If we lived in a different reality with different histories, with different religions, that same attendant would have come in and said, for example, hey, your brother shifted. If this person understood shifting, then they would just go, okay, I'll catch them the next time. Okay, even if they're repeating it over and over again, they would just say, okay. But clearly that's not the reality that we're in, right? We're in the reality where we mourn in that painful way because we somehow believe that nothing matters and that once you're gone, that's it, even though it doesn't. On a quantum level, that's just not true. On the physics, on the level of like physics, it's not true. I don't know how else to say it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. There's too many things that say that it's not true. Out of body experiences, near death experiences, like quantum physics, like it's too many things it's saying that it's just not true. Okay. So my thought process was, well, just tell them that, oh, your brother's fine. And I even doubled down. I was like, not only would I tell them their brother is fine, I would go in and I would use technology and I will like, if I've got to use AI to like generate images of them hanging out, and that's what I would show them and say, oh, actually, your brother was here yesterday and he'll be here tomorrow. And I would just show them that same video of them hanging out over and over again, because then you're not creating hell on earth for somebody in their mind. Why does it matter either way what you tell the person who's not going to remember anyway? Why are you so bound on putting that person through hell over and over again when you can reconstruct a different reality and give them peace? And I'm saying that to you. It's not even about reconstructing a different reality, because that reality does exist. Whatever it is that your brain is trying to get you to go back on, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Put whatever it is in there. Either you cut that shit out, like, nope, that didn't happen, or make it so that it happened, but it happened for a good reason. For example, my partner just broke a vase. I bought this vase yesterday from an antique shop, and today he kind of nudged the table and it fell right before, as I was getting ready to record. And what I did in my mind was, because I actually thought the vase was really beautiful, that's why I bought it. But I said to my mind was like, okay, well, it happened. Now, if I was that pressed about it, what I could have told myself is, don't go back and you edit. What I could tell myself is, well, maybe there was something in that bottle. I mean, it is an antique. It could have uranium, it could have lead, it could have whatever, that had it stayed in the house could have caused serious health effects. So I'm just going in and I'm reimagining a different reality. And so then it allows me to emotionally let go of the vase being broken. But I'm saying take that and take it like even further, like really like double down. Like, even if you have to get to a point where it's like, maybe this is extreme. My brain just made this suggestion. You never bought it. Gone. If I never bought it, then it doesn't matter. Don't hate the messenger. Think about the fact of what we've talked about, and then think about the role that memory plays in our reality. Imagine you are, in fact, an immortal being, or we're all immortal beings, sort of having this eternal experience, and how memory is used to sort of protect us. Because the reason why you don't remember all your past lives is because I'm sure they're fucking traumatic. Let's assume everything we've been talking about on this podcast is true. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying let's assume that it's true. Now, imagine if right now you could remember every single, like, how you died, how you suffered, how many people you watched die, dysentery, fucking the Spanish Inquisition, the witch trials. You lived through all of that. Assault, murder, all of that. That was just, you just carried all of that, because on some level, there are books, and in that video I mentioned, the author of the video talked about the certain books, and I'm going to read them, and probably we'll talk about them on the next episode. But apparently you're just carrying that shit, but there is a mechanism in place that has just sort of suppressed the memory of that. Now imagine if all of a sudden you could remember all that shit, and now, like, your brain can't even let go of something that you did yesterday. Like, somebody looked at you funny yesterday and you're going back to that. They looked at you funny. Imagine all of the trauma that you're just carrying on yourself. La, la, la. I believe the mechanism of forgetfulness is there as a protective mechanism. Why can't you use it with intention? Right? So going back to, I'm going for a walk. We have 336 version Joe. Clearly, if I'm dropping dead at 3:36 p.m. on my walk yesterday, I'm not remembering that. Once again, I mentioned our mathematical universe. Just go in and read the first chapter. Max Tegmark talks about this. It sounds like science fiction, but it's not. That's why I keep bringing up books that you can go and read on your own. All of this sounds like science fiction, but it's not. Okay? So essentially, your mind, every time you may have had a near-death experience and didn't even realize it and shifted, oh, that was close. But maybe it wasn't close. Maybe your mind is editing that out anyway. So why can't you fucking do it intentionally? Why can't you do it consciously? Why can't you go, what pause? Eventually you forget anyway. I'm just saying, why don't you consciously do it? Because I've watched too many people suffer because they're using the memory in the wrong way, or they're allowing something to use their memory, or their memory is being used against them. I have a friend of mine who the partner cheated on them a lot. And because of where they came from, they just sort of like accepted it because it's like, the Middle Eastern, it's the culture, whatever. But while they're still together, every time you sort of have conversations around relationships, she brings it up. And as a result, you're watching her sort of lash out with spite at her husband. And my response in my mind, and sometimes out loud, is if you don't want a constant reminder of what this person has done to you, if you cannot let it go, then you need to let them go. Because you're only harming yourself. Every time you sit and you think about that, you're releasing cortisol into your body. And that over time will wear you down. Stress. And stress, I'm not going to say the word, but stress is not good for your body. And here's the thing too, by remembering what this person did to them in the past, it also crystallizes their future, because that memory of what was done to them in the past affects the way she treats him. And so she moves in a particular way. So you see how her past is now influencing her future, and they're working together in tandem, past, future, past, future. So because of her constantly remembering what happened here, it's affecting how she treats her husband. It's also affecting how she sees men in general. And so it's forcing her on this trajectory where she's just, well, they're all the same anyway, so I'm just going to stay here. And so that's pushing her on this path and keeping her on this path. So that event in the past is for sure absolutely crystallizing that path. And then every time her mind takes her back there, it's crystallizing this version of her over and over and over again. I'm not saying be a fool and completely forget. Like, oh, this person didn't hurt me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, if you can't stop, like if you can't alter their behavior, like alter your behavior. You can't alter their behavior. Alter your behavior. This person did this thing. If you don't want to be in the situation, leave. If you don't trust the person, leave. If you can manage the situation, if you want to stay, then move in a way to make sure that you being with the person doesn't negatively impact you, but staying with the person while continuously reminding them of what they've done and also talking to everybody about what they've done just makes you an unhappy person. It also is you pulling emotional pain into the future, thus ensuring that your future and your present will stay in this path of somebody who's been hurt in a particular way. Now, this is drastic because her behavior has already changed towards the person anyway, towards her partner anyway, right? Like they're not intimate anymore because of that. That's fine. She feels compelled to stay with this person. That's okay too. It's not my space to judge. Okay. So she's already protected in that way. She just is, I'm just going to, she goes, I'm just going to accept his behavior. That's what it is, but she's not doing anything. Okay. That's fine. But then mentally going back, and I'm talking about like this happened like ages ago, like decades ago. Decades ago, you're just carrying the weight of 20 years with you. Why do you think you look older than you actually are? Why do you think you're getting sick? You're carrying that. Every day you're taking this one event. And instead of saying, okay, it is what it is, I'm done. I'm not going to allow this scene to affect me. You now for 20 years have lived that hellish experience over and over and over and over and over. It's almost like somebody like punctures you. You could have let it heal. But every time you mentally go back to that day that you were punctured, it's like getting punctured again. And then it's that same wound. And for 20 years, it's that boom, boom. It only had the ability to harm you once, but with your mind, you've gone back. That is hell. That is hell in your mind. With your mind, you've gone back. And for 20 years, almost monthly, you are being stabbed and 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 stabbed. And you don't think that that causes a long-term effect on your psyche. I'm not saying don't learn the lesson, right? If somebody punctures you, you now know, okay, I can't trust that person, especially if they did it intentionally. Learn the lesson. Learn the lesson, delete the scene. Take the scene, cut it out, right? If I'm walking, if I'm going for a walk, right? Imagine we're actually conscious of our shifting. If I'm going for a walk and I step on a whatever, like this is so morbid. I step on something that ends me at 3:36 p.m. yesterday. Okay. If I retain the memory, I go, okay, that's fine. Don't step on something. There's something right there, right? Don't step on that. I'm here now. I'm not going to keep stepping on the thing. I certainly am not going to keep going back, even though I'm supposed to be going for a walk. Every once in a while, like I stop, go back, step on the thing again, get harmed. Go forward a bit, go back, step. You see how that's insanity? How are you able to go forward if you keep mentally going backwards? And then after a while, you're kind of just in this loop. And maybe that is the black hole that causes the loop. But it's more of a philosophical black hole. That depression is more of a philosophical black hole that your mind enters into, and now you're stuck in there. I'm going to tell you what I've done. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to tell you what I've done. Ever since I began this practice, for example, I'll be walking, right? And I'll start getting tired. And then my mind goes, oh, we're getting tired. And then I say to my mind, oh, because my mind will go like, oh, you've been walking for an hour. And I'll go, no, I haven't. Like literally, like, if you look, I was minding my own business before you started talking shit. Yeah. So like, I'll talk shit back. I haven't actually. I will gaslight my own mind. No, I haven't. I haven't been walking for an hour. Or if it's saying, oh, you're tired. Okay, well, let's delete those scenes where I'm tired. Let's take out those versions in the mind. Let's take out those tired Joes in the mind. And then let's just not tired, not tired, not tired. Cool. Okay, I'm a little tired. I'm definitely not this much tired. Let's cut out the last 30 minutes. Okay, I'm tired. I'm still going to rest. I'm definitely not going to push myself. But the chunk of time in which I was tired, I'm just going to reduce that by like 50%. And I'm going to just take it easy, and I'm going to recoup. But I'm going to basically cut that. I'm not going to bring the fatigue from the last 30 minutes into the present with me. We're just going to take that out. I was walking, and all of a sudden I felt a pain in my right foot, right? So 9:27, no pain. 9:28, no pain. 9:30, pain. 9:31, what's my brain trying to do? It goes, you'll see this, try it. It'll go, oh, remember the pain. Remember your foot hurts? Don't you remember your foot hurts? Well, no, my foot only started hurting at like 9:27. It wasn't hurting in 9:26. So how about we just cut this bit out? Nope, my foot doesn't hurt. And I'm not saying like if I stepped on something, clearly I have to just say, it just started hurting out of the blue. So I was like, all right, well, it wasn't hurting on 9:26. Now we're 9:30. So yeah, I'm just going to cut out that part where my foot was hurting. Yeah, we're going to cut that out. And then now we're 9:31, and it was like I tried to take a step, and it was like, no, remember your foot? Nope, I don't actually remember. I don't remember. Sorry. And within like I literally shifted my mind, started thinking about something else. Within like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, it stopped. I'm not making this up. Like it legit happened. It stopped. I've had situations where I'll just be minding my own business. My brain will try to like bring up somebody that like was unkind to me. And what I've done instead is I'll go back in my mind and I'll reimagine the situation. And I go, that's not actually what happened. This is what happened. And I literally edit, or if I'm never going to see the person again, or I don't want to think about them, or whatever it is, I literally will just go in and I've done this. Like this has actually been an exercise that I've done. I'm just now becoming even more conscious of it. I will go into my mind and I will just mentally go boop 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 boop, 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 and I just delete them from my mind. Now people talk to me because like literally friends of mine will be asking me about like a person and I'll be like, who? And I think that's the beauty of having an ADHD mind. Like you actually were really good at this, ADHDers, because like sometimes it's like that out of sight, out of mind thing. So like lean heavy into that. If you have ADHD, like lean heavy into it. Because sometimes like I'll go traveling, I'll come back, I'll forget we have a dog. And it's my memory is not shit. Like I don't have a bad memory. Like you guys are watching me. I will be able to recall what book I got what from, this, that, and the other, whatever. But for certain situations, like I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not seeing the dog. It's not like relevant to me in every day. Like if you go, oh, here's a dog, and I'm like, oh yeah, obviously that's Morpheus. But like it's not in the forefront of my mind. I'm not dealing with it on a daily basis. It's not important to me in that way. By it, I mean he's not important to me. He's just a dog. It's kind of like a side character. So if he pops up again, I'll deal with him. I know how bad this sounds, but this is actually a symptom of ADHD. Look it up. And for those of you with ADHD, you understand what I'm talking about, right? So you kind of just forget. And I'm saying lean heavy into that. I don't have to remember people who hurt me. And that's the thing, like your brain will try to bring up motherfuckers from like 12 years ago. Why are you bringing this up? Why, there's no reason for you to bring up this memory right now, except you just want me to, what is this? Is there like some sort of demon in my head? Like Watiko? I keep mentioning Watiko because I'm referencing a book. For those of you who haven't heard of Watiko, please go check it out. Yeah. Wetiko. Why are you bringing shit up from 12 years ago? Okay, bet if that's what we're doing, cool. This is actually what happened. Okay, now we're going to sit and I'm going to reimagine. So you want to just throw the memory in my head. I'm going to reimagine something different. There was a parallel universe where instead of this is what happened. Nope. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah, go fuck yourself. And all of a sudden, yeah, no, actually it's you do that every time. Every time. You do that every time. Eventually, your brain just believes that that's what happened. There is somebody had messaged me after I posted what I read to you guys about using CTCs. Like, well, not using CTCs, but like closed time like loops, whatever. And they said something to the effect of, and this is E2K13LS. Shout out to Eric if you're listening. It says, so by changing the loop memory in your mind, you can potentially change the future. The hard part would be to convince your mind of the new truth. Maybe hypnosis can be used as a basis for the new reality. And my response is, it's only hard if you say it is. You see how we cast spells on ourselves? It's not hard. If you can loop on something, like what's hard is something is like is in your quote unquote in your past and you're mentally getting thrown back to it to relive a fucked up situation and put your body through something that you're not dealing with in the present. That's hard. It's not hard to go, yeah, actually, we're going to change. And I didn't actually experience that. Yes, there is a reality where that occurred, but there's also a reality where all these other things. So I'm going to mentally put myself into this reality where something different happened. And every time my mind tries to put me here, I'm going to say, nope, actually, this happened. Nope, this happened. And my response was, find your favorite song that puts you in a happy place mentally, loop the song. Then think of the memory that you want to change. Remember something different, and then loop that. Since you want to play loopy loop games with me, then let's go. I'm talking to the ego. If you want to play these games with me, let's go. Either the person literally in my head is like, okay, if you want to bring that up, cool. They don't exist. I don't even remember what they look like. What you got? Now what? I promise you, you do that enough times, your life changes, your future changes, because why you're being sent back is to reinforce the path you're on. And the path that you're on, if you keep remembering these bad things, right, these negative things, some people are able to learn from the past, right? And then change their trajectory into a better, so you know what, I went through that, but I'm not going to go through that again. And then they are able to use that and launch off to something else. But it's a very rare individual I've seen do that. Most of the time, people get stuck in the past and they use past trauma to remain victims, and it's not a good place to be in. I'll say that again. They'll use past trauma to become victims, to remain victims. And that's not a good place to be in. We're editing, literally. It's not even editing, it's you shifting. If you can shift forward, it is harder. I'm telling you right now, it is harder. I started this episode talking about, okay, pause, choose a different reality. Going back and choosing a different reality also, harder, not impossible. Part of what makes it hard, though, is because we live in a society that goes, wait, you shouldn't do that. Why should I fucking not? My brain forgets shit all the time. Where'd you put your keys? What'd you have for breakfast 4 days ago? So why can't I forget shit that's literally causing depression? Why can't I consciously go in and go, okay, actually, this, or you know what, cut that out. I'm not saying don't take the lesson. It's just for the flow, it doesn't matter. For the flow of your story, it doesn't matter. Alwyn and I, my editor, like we edit videos. So Alwyn will take a video and I'll send him. So once this is done recording, I'll send it to him. He does his thing and then he sends it to me. And I go in and I chop some things up too. There's parts that I take out that he doesn't take out because, well, he wants to make sure that, you know, he doesn't cut out something that I found to be important. But because I'm the one who's, you know, deciding what I want to put out, I can go in and go, no, I don't want that in there. We're going to take that out. We're going to take that out. I'm going to take this out, this out, that. And then it still flows. It's a little choppy here and there. You guys can tell when things, it's like, it doesn't fucking matter though. You got the overall idea. And then sometimes we'll see that. So when I do a video on Instagram, like those are like the shorts, the clips, those you can tell are really heavy ended because sometimes I go in and I'll take what I said on in this part of the podcast and I'll put it before another part, right? Because I feel like it flows better. So sometimes a clip that's edited for Instagram and TikTok is going to sound different than what was said on the podcast. I could do that. Once I sat back and kind of reimagine the whole thing or learn new things, or no, I actually wanted to say like that, or I could do that. I could do that. Do the same thing with your fucking life. You could do that. You could do that. What do you have to lose? This isn't going to hit for everybody, and that's okay. I'll say that again. This isn't going to hit for everybody, and that's okay. But right now, I'm sitting here thinking, and there are people that my mind is trying to throw at me. It's fine. It's not repression. It's not suppression. It's not dissociation. It's me doing what the fuck I want to do with my mind. You can put whatever labels you want on it. But there are people out there who are actively reliving the past and it's affecting themselves in the future. And there's no label that's considered normal. And that to me just leads to dysfunction. People are actually suffering. I'm not advocating that you do that. I'm telling you that this is what I've decided to do. Do with the information what you will, but I'm telling you right now, particularly when I've like felt pain, I talked to my partner about it and he's done the same thing. We were walking, it was a bit hot. He hit a wall. And then he mentally went back and was like, well, okay, he does need rest. That's okay. Once you do this regularly, I promise you, your body will adjust with your mind and get in sync, and you'll be able to do this better. You'll be better at doing this. But for now, allow your body to adjust. But he, all of a sudden, like we were walking, all of a sudden he was fine. He was going again. I said, what happened? You seem fine. He was like, yeah, I put it into mind. I took into mind what you said, and I just sort of removed maybe the last 20 minutes that was kind of hard. And then I was able to recover, not from the last 20 minutes, but maybe from like 30 minutes ago. So then he's only dealing with 10 minutes of stress and he was able to go. And at the end, he was still going. You can't say you're a multidimensional being. You can't say all of time is happening right now. You can't say we're living in a multiverse without sitting with the implications of that. Because I'll sit and I'll listen to people talk about what this person did and and part of what I've been doing with pausing and choosing my reactions is when I get ready to talk about the past and complain or to say, well, this person, I stop. It's already happened once. I don't want to happen again. I don't want to have it happen again. It's a bad habit. I will break this habit. If it's not something I want crystallized, if it's not something I want as part of my story, I'm the director. I'm cutting out that scene. Fuck that. You don't get to have a starring role in my life story. I'll say that again. Some random insignificant person is not going to get to have that kind of power in my life story. Now, we don't like that. Like, think if this happens in acting. Like, I've talked to a few actors. It's not funny. I'm just laughing. But actually, this happened to me. I remember doing a show in San Diego, like years ago. I don't even know. But like, I was on the set. Like, I got paid, all of that. I was playing like a baseball player wife or something like that. I didn't make it to the final. I'm laughing at myself. Like, I got hyped. They filmed all that shit. And I got paid. All right. I could say that, yes, technically I was on that show, but it didn't make it to the final cut. Some of you guys are bringing people in to the final cut that don't deserve to be in your final cut. Cut them out. Leave them on the editing floor. Leave them on the editing floor. And I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks for watching.